Attention Scaling Up Nation. You need a partner you can trust when it comes to the products you put in your customers' systems. Look no further than Scranton Associates for your custom blending needs. As a 100% private label toll blender, they combine your formulations with their expertise to deliver high-quality water treatment products made to your exact specifications. Scranton Associates has been helping the water treatment industry for over 100 years. With quick turnaround times and guaranteed accuracy, Scranton Associates is the partner you need to scale up your water treatment business. Visit scalinguph2o.com/Scranton. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/Scranton. Scranton Associates. We don't just blend, we create solutions. Ensure the longevity of your industrial heat transfer equipment with our comprehensive corrosion coupon analysis. Don't just send your corrosion coupons to any lab. Send your corrosion coupons to a lab that understands your water treatment needs. B Labs is run by water treaters for water treaters. At B Labs, every corrosion coupon report includes a picture of your corrosion coupon before and after cleaning, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. To find out more, go to scalinguph2o.com/B Labs and up your corrosion coupon game. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/BELABS. B Labs, corrosion coupon reports done right. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And Nation, I hope that you are having a great day. I hope that you are realizing you are in the best industry in the world. Maybe you are smack dab in the middle of your day and you just got a great compliment from one of your customers. And they said that you're just doing a tremendous job and they could not do what they do without you doing what you do. It is my hope that that's your day. It's my hope that that is every single one of your days. I know that's not always the case. And I want you to realize that you are in an amazing industry and you are part of a community. We call that community the Scaling Up Nation. And when I talk to people on a regular basis, when I go to conferences, just like the few I'm going to tell you in just a short while, people will say, yeah, I have a few bad days, but the majority of my days are great. And I don't have customers. I have friends. I have people that trust me and people that look out for me just like I look out for them. And I sure hope that that describes your regular day to day. And if I'm not describing that, I'm hoping I'm just describing maybe an off day. But Nation, I do want to put a plug out here. I did this a couple of weeks ago. If we're not telling our customers the value that we bring, a lot of times they don't conclude that on themselves. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not too terribly long ago, I was working with a consulting client that I work with, and I was talking with some of their field representatives, and many of their field representatives were just ticking the box, just checking the checkbox that they serviced that account. But they could not tell me the last time they spoke to the client themselves. And the only time they hear from the client is when there's an issue, and that issue then ruined their day. Well, Nation, I think that that was a self-created issue. We've trained that client, in this case, to only reach out when there are issues, not to share the great good things that happen on a regular basis, not to understand the value that we bring on a regular basis, just when there are issues. And not a lot of people that I was talking to had relationships. They knew who the people were at the account, but they couldn't tell me anything personal about those individuals. And a lot of them couldn't remember the last time they spoke to those individuals. Well, If that is you, and I sure hope it isn't, you are missing an amazing opportunity. I have met so many amazing people because I offered water treatment services to them, and I got personal tours of their facilities. I got referred to their friends, their colleagues, because we had such a good relationship and they trusted me. And how did that trust start? Well, it started by promising to do something and then delivering on that and then doing that again and again. And then asking them questions about their personal life and remembering how they answered those questions. And the next time in, maybe asking about the twins that they told you about. I tell you, people really enjoy doing business with people they have good relationships with. But sometimes we get so caught up in doing the mechanics of our job, we forget about the relational part of our job. And Nation, I think that's the part that makes our job so much fun. So I'm going to challenge you. When was the last time you looked at your job that way? Maybe you need to add a checkbox that you've spoken with the client. Maybe you need to add a checkbox that you know some personal information about them. I think you'll be glad you did, and I think you're going to have a better day because of it. Well, Nation, somebody that helps me have a better day probably each and every day is my friend James McDonald, and he's your friend too. And here is a brand new What Do You Know?
Hello and welcome to What Do You Know? The game show where we find out what do you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, what do you call the device commonly used to measure the percentage of salt in a softener brine solution? It is called a salometer, or simply a hydrometer. It's a useful, easy troubleshooting tool to have handy when monitoring and troubleshooting brine-regenerated water softeners. It is used to not only determine the percent saturation of the salt solution in the brine tank, but also used to monitor the diluted salt concentration exiting the water softener during the brine draw and slow rinse displacement steps to form an elution curve. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of What Do You Know?
Thank you, James. And if you need to get caught up on your weekly dose of What Do You Know, you can go to scalinguph2o.com, look back at our show notes pages, and we'll have every single one of those for you. So you will have lots of water that you know. Yeah, I said that. I couldn't think of any other way to say it. Nation, I am going to get straight to our interview because I don't know what I just said. So here it is, Nation. Here's the interview. My lab partner today is Ben Frieders of ChemREADY. Ben, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thanks for having me, Trace.
So we're going to talk about your voice later because you've got that quintessential late night DJ voice. But before we get there and all the other great things we're going to talk about, do you mind introducing yourself to the Scaling Up Nation?
Absolutely. Well, as I said, thanks for having me, Trace. My name is Ben Frieders. I work with a company called ChemREADY. Our corporate headquarters are based out of a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and we're primarily in the Midwest. I am the marketing and business development manager at ChemREADY. I started as an individual contributor, and I've moved into management recently about a year ago.
Ben, you and I know each other from the Rising Tide Mastermind, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I am curious, one of my favorite questions to ask most of my guests is, how did you get in this industry?
Well, it's an interesting story, Trace. I had a non-traditional water treatment path. I started my professional career in 2006 when I joined the Navy right out of high school. And I joined the nuclear power program, which I've seen magazine articles of the 5 hardest military schools in the United States. The first 4 being special forces schools, SEALs, Rangers, and so on. And then the 5th being academically the Naval Nuclear Power School. So I did 2 years of training, learned how to be an engineering laboratory technician, and then went to a fast attack submarine to operate a nuclear power plant. And as you imagine, we call a reactor a big hot rock with uranium, and that creates steam. So we had a large steam plant, and I learned water chemistry there. So I did 4 6-month deployments on submarines, and a training command tour. So I learned a lot. I became the senior enlisted leader of our chemistry department. I did that for 12 years. Once I got out of the Navy, I didn't even know water treatment existed. I thought my only job options afterwards were to go work at a nuclear power plant, and found a job listing on LinkedIn. And as it turns out, lots of steam boilers out in the world. And ever since then, that was 2019. I've been in the industry in the civilian world ever since.
Best job ever?
Best job I ever had.
Ben, you and I met on a hang years ago. I guess you heard the podcast. We were having a hang. You joined in, and you and I hit it off immediately.
Yeah, that was, if I remember correctly, it's been coming on 4 years, I think now, or 3. And yes, I learned about the podcast. Definitely taught me a lot. Pinks and Blues are some of my favorite episodes, and met you on the hang.
So we have gotten data back that people enjoy all the episodes, but we get extremely high praise for the Pinks and Blues episodes. I've shared with you all the research and all the time that goes into those. Those are by far the most laborious of all the episodes we have to produce, but people absolutely love them. So we are doing more of those this year.
Well, I'm sure everybody will appreciate that. I know I do.
You mentioned being on a submarine, and I think submarines are just cool. When I was a teenager, I got this book on submarines and was reading about the evolution of the submarines and the current submarines that were there. And one of my favorite images is a submarine just breaching at full power out of the water. And did you ever do that?
We did. It's actually a routine test that we do. It's called the emergency blow system. So we have 4,500 pound air that blows out through our ballast tanks and makes the submarine immediately buoyant. So we'll start at a certain depth. That's our emergency safety switch. If we were ever to bring on water, if we were flooding, if we had any other type of emergency that would require us to immediately surface, that's the system we would use to do so.
So I'm a scuba dive instructor, and one of the things that we teach our students is you can only go up so fast or nitrogen will come out of solution, and then you get what's called the bends. You're on a submarine, you're in a pressurized environment. I guess you don't have to worry about stuff like that.
We do not. We've actually done emergency blows from close to what our test depth are, from going all the way down to where our limits of the submarine are, and then emergency blowing to the surface. So there's no limitations on the amount. Usually we're at a 35 to 40 degree angle coming up when we're doing an emergency blow, which is where you see in the movies where they come up and kind of level out and surface.
What's the maximum depth on a sub?
Google will tell you greater than 700 feet for a fast attack submarine, and that's all I'm allowed to say, still to this day.
What's the crush depth? Can you say that, or is that classified?
Greater than that.
All right. He's still under contract with the Navy. Got it. Well, we are Rising Tide Mastermind members. We meet every week. Of course, we read books together. One of the books that we read was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And it was all about negotiations and all the things that we could learn from an FBI negotiator. And one of the things he taught in the book was how to take a highly emotionally charged situation and bring it down several notches by using the late night DJ voice. And you and I have competitions on who can do that better. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, Trace, I believe that my radio DJ voice will probably win. And I would encourage everyone to vote for me.
All right, so we're going to have some sort of voting system on our social media, I think, for this. But we just have fun with that. And you can't see this, but Ben has this really cool microphone, and I've got a microphone that I purchased for the podcast that I just use every time that I do any video conferencing. And everybody in the mastermind says that Ben is trying to compete. So anyway, just bringing the Scaling Up Nation in on the competition that we're having.
Trace, there's no competition. Mine's better.
So there you have it. We'll have ways to vote, and you guys can vote, and we can put this argument to an end. But I do want to ask you, whenever I have a Rising Tide member on the podcast, I would love it if you could tell the Scaling Up Nation a little bit about the Rising Tide Mastermind. I know it's not for everybody, but for the people that it is a good fit for, what do you think they need to know?
I've always been a fan of personal and professional development. And when I found out about the Rising Tide Mastermind, I know it was a good fit. I'd done masterminds with groups of mentors and peers with some of my Navy friends. And to have a group of individuals in the industry that know what we go through as water treaters, the windshield time and the pinks and blues, and dealing with the personnel problems and the lack of talent and resources out there for a lot of companies. It's extremely important. It's been very important to my professional development at ChemREADY, and having my group of friends who have become friends with me on a weekly basis. So it's been a vital part of my growth as an individual and a professional.
Not having to explain to somebody what you do and why a problem is a problem. You can just talk about the problem. You don't get that anywhere else.
That's right. It's very rare. My wife makes fun of me every time I talk about Legionella. It's Legionella. Yeah, that's really funny. And I get made fun of in love about things I talk about from work. But to have a group of peers and mentors surrounding you to be able to talk through different water treatment issues is, like I said, very important for me.
Well, we're talking about technical issues. We're talking about pretty much any issues. It's amazing some of the things that we've helped fellow members through, and nothing is off base. Whatever that person needs help with, we talk about it. And it wasn't too terribly long ago, you called me and you said, my house just burned down. And I want to bring that up, not because of the experience, but just because of how you handled it, how you led your family through that, how you continue to look at that in the most positive light possible. And I think you're just an example not to focus on the bad thing that happened, but focus on what you have control over. I'd love for you to speak on that if you don't mind.
Well, I will say I don't recommend burning your house down. That's not a fun experience.
Fair enough. We'll go on record on that.
But I will say, having an understanding group, not only the people at my company who said, take all the time you need, but having the resources and just the warmth and love that you have in a group like the Rising Tide. I can bring anything to that group, and they're immediately understanding. Some of my best friends now exist in the Rising Tide. And, I'll say that oftentimes you can think about the bad, but I don't find that productive or helpful. I see the good. Nobody was hurt. Insurance is helping us rebuild. We're about 80% of the way. It happened March of 2024. And I don't see any other way to look at it. It's just been in my nature. My philosophy is every day that you're not on a submarine is a good day. So everything else is just water under the bridge.
Now, after it happened and there was an inspection, did you learn anything that could help other Scaling Up Nation members that they don't ever have to experience what you experienced?
Absolutely. One thing you learn going through an event like this is most people do not have a smoke detector in their garages. And the fire started and originated in the garage. And had there been one in the garage, it could have been an interesting, different experience. I smelled the smoke, heard the noises, and attempted to use my puny fire extinguisher on the blazing fire of my garage. And had we found out about it a little bit sooner, it could have been a different experience.
So just going to your hardware supply store and purchasing, what's a smoke detector? $30?
$20. Yeah. Purchasing a smoke detector, make sure that you've got a fire extinguisher for kitchen fires, fire blankets, something that would help you and your loved ones. God forbid it happens to anybody else in the middle of the night, get out of the house safely.
Well, that's a very extreme full cup, but we call anytime we share advice with another Rising Tide Mastermind member a full cup. How do we fill somebody else's cup from an experience that we had? So you just did that for the Scaling Up Nation. And we encourage on all of our calls, if we're doing something that can help another member, don't keep that to yourself, share that. And just the other day, we were having a conversation. You shared a full cup on how you are using artificial intelligence. And I thought that that would just be a fantastic podcast because it would help so many Scaling Up Nation members. So I want to ask, how long have you been using AI and how do you use it?
Sure. We, as a company, we started experimenting using artificial intelligence. I would say coming up on 2 years now. We were what we would consider an early adopter. And primarily, what we started to mess around with was in our marketing efforts. We understood that video creation is hard, content creation is hard. I mean, even having a website that is attractive as a water treatment company is very rare from what we've seen. And we started using ChatGPT in its early stages to help us come up with ideas. It was an idea generator that's evolved into being a primary driver in our marketing efforts. And we've seen a lot of success and a lot of website traffic and leads come from the generation and creation of things from artificial intelligence.
And I do want to mention, we did a recent AI episode with Matt Monterleone, and I know the Scaling Up Nation really enjoyed that, and they want to learn more on how they can use AI to make their life a little bit simpler and easier, and the stuff they don't want to do get done a little bit faster. So that's the whole point of this episode. You were showing me something the other day that I need an image for, I think it was Legionella. And, what are the different images on how we could put this into a presentation? How do you do that with AI?
Absolutely. There's some different AI applications that we've used frequently. One is a newer application called Sora. It's actually under the Chat GPT family. If you've got a paid account, I don't know if it's under the free accounts, but we have a company license. We have 3 licenses for Chat GPT. And Sora is a video clip generator. So much like if you're familiar with ChatGPT, you can enter a prompt of what you want the AI to create. So, for example, in the case of the Legionella, I said, I want Legionella bacteria seen moving under a microscope. And within about a minute to 2 minutes, it had created a 5-second clip that you can download and use in marketing promotions or your own marketing media. Computer AI generated picture of Legionella bacteria. And you can piece those together into, if you want to create an entire 1 to 2 minute video, informational video, you can continue to add prompts and make your own video clips for AI video creation. It's really cool.
You mentioned you pay for ChatGPT, and there are other services out there. Most people, I would imagine, they're just using the free version. What are the big differences?
The big differences are if you're using ChatGPT with multiple prompts or doing data analysis, the paid version does not give you limitations. So the free version, they're only going to give you so many prompts a day or per hour. So if you put a lot of information in there or you're requiring it to generate a lot of content, oftentimes you'll run up against those limits. What I find for ChatGPT or AI in general, and I tell my team, my marketing team, is that AI is still just a tool. It's not the end all be all. You will still need to continually modify the output that it does. And as you learn how to do that, it's really about crafting those prompts and then continuing to talk to it like you would a person. It's almost like having a friend, a computer friend. Hopefully it doesn't turn into Skynet, but you need to tell it exactly what you want. And no matter how specific you think you are, you will still continually need to tailor that as you continue the prompt and the conversation.
I learned this during the full cups when we were talking about AI. Somebody shared one huge difference between the free version and the paid version is when you load information into the paid version, that material stays yours. You still own it. When you put something into the free version, by using the free version, you have just given that to the world.
Yes, the free version is almost a selfish thing that the company has done in the sense that it's continually using the data that you input it to continually learn. So any data that you put in there, you've now given the company permission to use that data to learn about how humans enter prompts and what those outputs are, if they were good, if they were not good. The company licenses protects that a little bit, and I found the paid version to be fairly cost effective, and it's been a good fit for us.
You mentioned making the 5-second clip for Legionella moving under a microscope. How do you make a prompt to do that?
The more details, the better. One thing that I've learned by using AI over the last few years is precision of language. You need it to be as precise and as detailed as possible to give the first best chance to get the output that you want. Often you'll still need to go in and modify that. And what's interesting about not only video generation, but any learning language model, we've talked about ChatGPT a lot. There are others out there, such as Google's Gemini is one. Claude is another one by another company that have similar capabilities and outputs like ChatGPT. But what a lot of people don't know is you can ask the AI to give itself its own prompt, and you can tell it to become a prompt generator to give it the best output. So let me give an example. If I were talking to ChatGPT and say, I am a marketing manager, what I would do oftentimes for a prompt is you need to give it an identity. So you would start your prompt with, I am a marketing manager for a small industrial water treatment company. You tell it what its purpose is now. My purpose is I need to create a 3-minute video targeting customers who have positive Legionella test results. And then you want to give it some constraints for the prompt itself. So you give it an identity, marketing manager, you tell it what the goal is, and then you give it the details. And oftentimes we talked about prompt generation. You can say, help me craft a prompt to create the best output that you can possibly do. And then the final tip that I will say for prompt generation is tell it to ask you questions. Say, ask me questions to better tailor this response. And oftentimes the first thing it will do is it will give you a series of 5 to 10 questions of the different categories. Who is the specific audience that this is for? What is their age range? Where do they live? Are they healthy individuals or are they trained professionals? What's the audience mindset? It will ask many questions to help you tailor that. And once you answer those questions, it will give you a final prompt, which then you can say, run this prompt and then see what the output is. We've done that many times for any type of media content, email marketing campaigns, video generation, script writing. There's a lot of different opportunities you can use AI for.
I was super impressed where I'm a student of the I Said This, You Heard That study, and I speak in the red choleric tone, and not everybody does, like yourself. You're more in the phlegmatic tone. And if I use my red words to craft an email to you, and maybe it's about something that's got a lot of charge around it, my red words are not going to come across well with your phlegmatic ears and eyes. And I am amazed at how well I can craft an email. I can throw it into AI and I can say, could you write this more specific for a green, how Ben is going to read it? And it knows how to do that.
It's amazing the amount of input. Time will tell if it's all legal or not with the copyright infringements of the inputs that they've created. But, again, give it an identity and say, write as the author of I Said This, You Heard That, and give it constraints and then craft an email. And it's amazing the amount of outputs. You may not get the first best output, but you can modify it at any point in time and get to where you want to be.
And I'll tell you what that has done, reading how it will change those words. I use it far less now because now it's taught me, instead of this your word, consider this word. So I'm going to ask that. A lot of people are worried, okay, we're going to stop thinking. We're all going to be a nation, a world of idiots because the machines are doing our jobs. But are there ways that we can use it so we can learn what we're doing better?
Absolutely. I will say that my knowledge of writing, copywriting, the way marketers think, I am not a traditional marketer. I've never gone to school for marketing. I've never had formal marketing experience. It's simply been identifying that, hey, I'm a technical guy. I know that the chemistry and the reasons behind water treatment are a certain way. And I got involved in marketing to make sure that the message was technically correct. I've learned through using AI and interacting with the platform of how it starts to think as a marketer. How, if I'm creating emails that are customer facing, how the format of the introduction, middle, and call to action at the end, what the industry standard is to get people's attention. And had I not interacted with AI in that way, I would have not have learned it any other way.
All right, Scaling Up Nation, it's time for a word from one of our sponsors. Are your glycol systems protected and operating at their best? Thermal Fluid Technologies is here to ensure they are. Trusted by industry professionals for over 25 years, their protocol heat transfer fluids provide unmatched corrosion protection and system performance for industrial HVAC, process heating and cooling, and food and beverage applications. Need a clean start? Their cleaner and degreaser prepare your system for years of trouble-free service. And their state-of-the-art lab offers one of the most comprehensive coolant testing programs available. Upgrade your system's performance today with Thermal Fluid Technologies. To learn more about Thermal Fluid Technologies, go to scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/TFT. Thermal Fluid Technologies, where performance meets peace of mind. A big thank you to our sponsors. They help keep us running. And now, back to the interview. I had a Scaling Up Nation member send me it was like a 3-minute clip of a podcast that I never did to a person I never interviewed by sampling the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And it sounded exactly like me. It had my inflections. I had to go assure myself that I never recorded this because it would have fooled me. That's a little scary. What do you think about that?
It is a little scary in terms of, they call them deep fakes, or the going a step further, not just the audio, but the video, is that you would have to be an audio or video engineering expert to really flesh out what's AI generated and what's not. That being said, I have confidence that the companies want to do the right thing. They want to safeguard people's privacy, and they want to protect the bad actors, people from the bad actors. And the flip side of that is, you mentioned the podcast being created. That, I believe, was likely a company called 11 Labs, which we also use. It's a audio engineering AI application. So you can input, say, a minute worth of audio. I could talk into this microphone for a minute, or have a video clip of something I've previously recorded, and it will completely replicate your voice. Now, where that multiplies your time and your energy is if you're a marketer like me and you need to put out a lot of media or a lot of content, I can have ChatGPT create a script, modify it for voice, for talking in voice, upload it into 11 Labs, and now I've got a first-time perfectly recorded video and audio sample that I can immediately publish. Whereas the time and energy to take out the ums and the pauses and the misspeaks and recording it 5 or 6 times until I think it's perfect, imagine that time multiplied over the course of weeks and years.
Yeah, that thought is terrifying to me. Let me assure the audience that you and I are real. This is not an AI-generated interview.
That's what you think.
Nation, I assure you, this is real. Don't listen to Ben. We are actually recording this. So I've got thousands of hours on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. I'm sure somebody just went on there. They sampled that. That's why it sounded just like me.
Absolutely. I think if there's enough audio clips that you can upload to replicate a voice, like I said, I think 11 Labs only needs a full minute's worth of audio. The better version is if you have 3 minutes, but that's how little input it takes to replicate all of your inflection and all of your normal sound as a speaker.
I read that actors were copywriting their face and their voice to protect themselves from AI.
Hollywood's an interesting beast. Imagine all of the actors who have passed away that they probably signed their rights over in some capacity. Say the Star Wars franchise and other actors where they AI generated those actors as part of the movie or superimposed their faces. Speaking of the Terminator, I believe Arnold Schwarzenegger had his face superimposed in one of the later, I think it was Terminator Genesis, where he wasn't actually in that movie, but the Terminators looked like him enough that it was obvious.
All right, so you are using this as an assistant, as a marketing director, so you can do things that only you can do better and faster while it's doing more of the, I don't want to do the work, it's more laborious, it's more research. So what are some things that it allows you to do now that you're not having to do that granular type work?
Yeah, it definitely allows me to see the fuller business picture. I've got 2 direct marketing reports, and they use ChatGPT in their daily tasks, whether it's media content creation, whether it's search engine optimization for our blogs and website pages. That ability to do tasks faster allows us to look at it from a strategy standpoint and be able to take a step back and condense what could have been a 40-hour full work week to make 3 or 4 pieces of media content. And that turns into a half day's work now. And now we can talk about the effectiveness of our media strategy. We talk about the direction that we want to go. We can look at bigger and different things that we wouldn't have been able to do before.
In addition, for using AI as marketing, you also use it with some water treatment tasks. Please tell us about that.
You know, what's interesting, and buyer beware and enter your data at your own risk, like you mentioned on some of the free versions. But if you have a license for ChatGPT, it does a very good job of analyzing data. So some of the things that we have done as water treaters is how do we look at the data for our customers and glean insights that may not be apparent to us? So some of the things that we've done is you can actually upload reports or PDFs or convert those into Excel documents. And then you can give AI a prompt to analyze that data. So we have done a number of projects where we have taken that data and we have given AI prompts and said, okay, from a microbiological standpoint, analyze this ORP, pH, and temperature data and tell me what you see. Just ask it the question. What do you see if you were an industrial water treater? What are some of the trends? What are some of the concerns that you have? What is the chemical consumption based on the input that we've given you? It can do all of those things. And it's very interesting from a technical standpoint of where the industry could go as water treaters. We've looked a lot into remote monitoring. You know, I know Walchem and Advantage and other companies out there, Buckman Laboratories, all have remote monitoring capabilities where they're getting a ton of data input into a dashboard that, yeah, that's great for a customer, but what do you do with it? Well, with AI, you can do something with it and turn it into insights and actionable items for your customers, where as a water treater, anything we can do to be a value-added service makes those contracts and customers even stickier.
Do you have an example of how you've been able to make a decision based on AI's interpretation of the data that you fed it?
There have been situations we did some testing for a customer, large convention center, and they had multiple failures in their chilled water loop system. And as water treaters, we know that taking a laboratory test and some on-site data a moment in time is not going to give you a full picture. But there were upwards of 30 samples and 30 sets of data to analyze where we used AI to input all that data and do exactly what I mentioned a little bit ago, is give us these insights that, even if they're micro variations, tell us what those variations are. Put it all on the table and let us see what the highs are, what the averages are, what the lows are, and what concerns or what implications this could have of the cause of failure that could have happened in this copper piping system or the mild steel. What are some things that we aren't considering? And it would list out potential microbial influence corrosion or ORP concerns, disinfectant residuals for the loop, things like that, from a troubleshooting standpoint, you're starting from scratch when you're trying to uncover a problem. AI can help you at least go a certain direction and go down that path, that line of thinking, and either, rule it out or come back and dig into it a little bit more and use AI to assist with that.
Let's unpack that a bit more, because I've put things in AI and it comes back and it sounds very confident and it is just wrong. Obviously, you are not cutting and pasting and sticking that directly into the final report you're sending the customer. So how do you recommend you review and verify?
Absolutely. AI learns from itself. So, what I would recommend if you're using this for anything customer facing is, first of all, it's a tool. Again, as I mentioned, it's not the end all be all. A CWT or somebody with equivalent knowledge should be able to flesh out what is inherently wrong and needs to be modified. And oftentimes, what's funny is that you can tell it to evaluate the output that it gave you and say, hey, this doesn't look right. And actually type those things. This doesn't look right. Go back and double check this output and see if it's right. And I can't tell you the number of times where it will say, actually, yes, I was wrong. And here are my sources that I'm using now. And here's the new output.
Really?
Yes. So it will learn. But again, it's taking, imagine, I don't even know what's above terabytes, but the millions of terabytes of data that is brought this language model. My recommendations are you need to give it a set of guardrails to operate under. So one of the ways to do that, because you can upload documents, is, hey, you could upload technical resources and say, upload this into your memory. We're operating off of this set of knowledge, this set of constraints. Now I'm going to input some water treatment data, and I want you to use your memory that I've uploaded to you and then give me an output from that. So it's like a chapter in a book. I want you to only focus on this chapter and this set of knowledge. I don't want any external factors, and I want you to give me an output based on that. Oftentimes, if you give it the guardrails that you want it to work from, you're going to get a better result.
Do you have to prompt those guardrails every time, or does it learn and remember from previous prompts?
So going back to the history, ChatGPT and Gemini all have, I believe, what they call threads. So if you've interacted and given prompts to these AI models, you can go back to that previous thread and any memory that you updated it, and you can just continue that conversation. So each thread is its own set of memory and own set of learning that you've taught the AI. So you can go back at any time and continue a conversation. One of my guys in marketing, he said he's had a thread that's been active where he's worked on it every day and put enough memory and data that he's almost making ChatGPT crash because he's got 3 months worth of input, a daily input into the single thread. And if you want to clear all that out, you just start a new one and give it a new set of constraints. So it's pretty cool.
What are some things that you think listeners should start today doing in AI?
One of the easiest things I recommend doing is start using it for your customer-facing emails, even if you use it just to double check and say, here's what my message wants to be to the customer. Take a look at it and make modifications. It could be as simple as that. You can do it in any of the free versions of ChatGPT, Gemini. I'm not suggesting you spend you or your company's money on any of these models. There's enough free opportunities out there to integrate AI. But if nothing else, just see what the output could be. Oftentimes, I'll put an input and I'll only use a paragraph or half of a paragraph of what I want the message to be in any of my communication, my documents that I'm making, or even report writing. If I'm making a report and say, this is what my goal is, make this in a more professional and succinct manner. It could be as simple as that. I would recommend starting there. Start slow, experience the models, and see how it's going to work best for you. If you're a manager or if you're part of marketing or you're in sales, there are many opportunities to create, multiple email campaigns, video creation, small things, case studies, things that would be of value to your customers, make you more front of mind and make you sound more professional.
I think that's great advice. One of the things I like to use it for throughout my career, people have hired me to find why did something fail? What was the issue? What are things that we need to look out for improvement? And I've learned how to write very detailed reports around that. And I'm not happy about this, but not everybody reads all my reports. They might skim. It does a fantastic job by loading that in and say, create an executive summary. And it will take out the highlights. Now, sometimes I'll review it and it misses like the main point. But the fact that it got me so much further by just putting that simple prompt in, I was able to get the outcome that I wanted so much quicker.
And to add a quick tip to that is that the way to get the first and best output is create an executive summary. But I want you to focus on these 3 main points as the points of emphasis. And then you highlight those things. And those things will not be forgotten. You may need to modify the prompt. But once you learn how to talk to AI, it will become more of your friend and not your enemy.
Well, Ben, this has been fascinating. And if somebody wants to learn more about AI, that's not difficult. You just go to Google or wherever, and you can learn a tremendous amount with AI, or just have fun and sign up for a free account. But as we mentioned before, just be careful. If you are on the free account, you might be giving up some rights. So just be aware of that. But I'm not done with questions quite yet with you. I do have some lightning round questions, and you are not allowed to use AI to answer these.
You won't ever know, Trace.
We're really having this conversation, Scaling Up Nation. This is us. This is not AI. I just want to underscore that. All right, question number 1. If you could go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a water treater, what advice would you give?
I would say continue to learn something new every day. The water treatment industry is very unique, in my opinion, compared to other industries, is that you're never going to know everything. You can learn something new about something every single day. So I pride myself on thinking that I've done that. I would say do that more often and more frequently and actively seek knowledge. And this podcast is a great way to do that.
I didn't ask for that plug, but I love it. Thank you for that. What are the last few books that you've read?
Well, you mentioned one of them. I went back and reread Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And a lot of the other ones have been Rising Tide books. So I bought my wife I Said This, You Heard That, and the kids version. So those have been the last 3. I forget what the title of the kids version is.
The Grown-Up's Guide to Kids Wiring, I believe.
That's right. So those are the last 3.
When Hollywood makes a movie about your life, who do you want playing Ben?
I've been thinking about this, and I can't think of a movie star that's got as epic of a beard as me. So they would have to be able to grow the beard and then play me accurately. So if you've got any recommendations, I'll certainly take those.
If I said one of the Duck Dynasty guys, would that be an insult?
No, I don't think so. Their beards are a little scraggly, though. So
That's true. That's true. You have a very well-kept beard.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If you could talk to anybody throughout history and ask them anything, who would it be and what would you ask?
I've always been fascinated with Benjamin Franklin, and that's primarily a name thing. I was Ben Frieders as an elementary school kid, Ben Franklin. So I've always had a common affinity for the name. But I think he was a fascinating man, and what he did for our founding fathers and the development of America, and his ambassadorship to France is fascinating to me. So I would love to have a beer and sit with Ben Franklin.
The first mention of a mastermind ever was Ben Franklin. He had a group called Huntus, I believe, and they met in a tavern over a beer each and every week. Ben, thank you for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast and sharing with the Scaling Up Nation how we can start using AI so we can do the things that us as industrial water treaters should be doing.
Trace, thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, once again, thank you, Ben, for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. Nation, Ben's one of those guys I could have sworn that I have interviewed before. Now, as you learned in this interview, Ben is a Rising Tide Mastermind member, and he has shared several what we call full cups with the Rising Tide membership. And a full cup is when a member who knows something more than the average member shares what they know with the entire group. And Ben's done that a couple of times. So when you know something, you should share it. So Ben, thank you for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. Thank you for sharing all the things that you do with the Rising Tide Mastermind. And Ben's just such an amazing individual. Of course, he is the marketing and development manager. He is a veteran. And of course, he served on a submarine. And I have to tell you, if you are ever in a conversation with Ben, ask him to tell you some Navy stories. Now, some he might not be able to tell you because they might be classified, but he's just a great person to talk with. And Ben, again, thank you for your service. All the veterans out there that are listening to this podcast, thank you for your service. Living in the United States of America, we would not have the country that we have without your service. And I know we have a lot of people that serve in their nation's country's armed forces. So thank you for what you're doing out there. And I hope you are looking at AI a little bit differently. So many people in the industrial water treatment field are kind of scared of AI. Of course, we talk about it as Skynet on the Terminator series. But Nation, it is a great tool. I think I mentioned on this episode that I use it to help with my research. You out there in the Scaling Up Nation do a great job of introducing us to new guests to interview. But then I got to figure out what am I going to ask of them, and I need to figure out all of the content that they've put out there. Well, Nation, it is not easy to find everything that somebody has published if you're just searching one by one. And AI is a great tool for going out there and just curating all of the information, all the content that that individual has put out there. And of course, I have to go through it and make sure it's the right individual. It might be somebody with another name. It's the same name, but it's another individual. It might be somebody totally different that AI just wanted to see if you were paying attention, but it very confidently will write that this is the same individual. But that's how I use it on a regular basis. I always vet the information that comes back to make sure that it is indeed the person that I think it is. But that saves me hours in trying to develop interview questions. So maybe there's something that Ben talked about today that might save you hours. Maybe it would just save you minutes. But it's minutes on every single account that you service. That'll equal hours. That'll equal a lot of hours. So it's my hope that maybe you're looking at AI a little bit differently. Maybe you're thinking about how can it be your tool in helping you do some things maybe you don't want to do or don't have time to do. And Ben did a great job today talking about prompting and how do we make our prompts better? How do we educate the system so it knows what to look for? And then in the future, we're just able to put some input in. We've already trained it. Nation, AI, I hope it doesn't come back and take over the planet. And maybe it's done that already. And we're all sleeping in this big network and we're just providing energy and heat for the machines. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm going to hope that it is not and that you are able to use AI to help out your day-to-day. Well, Nation, I'm curious, what AI are you using? There are a couple out there. We're going to go ahead and put a social media post out there with that question and kind of see what the Scaling Up Nation uses and why they think one tool is better than another. So when you see that come out on LinkedIn, be sure to answer that because I love seeing you all reply to our social media. And Nation, of course, we have all sorts of things on our social media. So if you're not connected with us, LinkedIn is the big one we have found for the industrial water treatment community. So you can connect with us either Scaling Up H2O or Trace Blackmore. Both of those will work, and we'll make sure that you get all of the information. And if you're not signed up for our newsletter, we give you some information that may or may not be in the show each and every week. So if you want maybe a little bit more insider information, you can go to scalinguph2o.com, sign up for our newsletter, and maybe that will give you something a little bit extra when you're talking with a fellow Scaling Up Nation member that they didn't know because they're not receiving that newsletter and you did. And then, of course, after they learn all that great information from you, they're probably going to go and subscribe to that newsletter. But we're just trying to figure out how can we bring you tools and information that makes your job easier, that makes your job better, that makes your job more enjoyable. And I figure that's my job. And by the way, it is the best job in the world. And of course, I get to do that next week and every week. So until next week, folks, I hope you take care of yourselves, your clients, and each other. Have a great week, folks. Preparing for the CWT exam can be daunting, but our Certified Water Technologist Prep course makes it easier. With valuable study tools and a 100-question practice exam, you'll be ready to tackle that test with confidence. Visit scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep to sign up today.